Welcome everyone. In this video, we will talk about how you can mark the structure because most of the people who are trading based on the smart money concepts do not know what is the real structure in the market, and because of this reason, they get stopped out by the market most of the times. Now, how they mark the structure? They think when market is moving to the upside and creating higher highs, then the structure is bullish, and at this point, like when market break the recent high, then this point becomes the break of structure for them. And when this becomes the break of structure, they are willing to buy based on the unmitigated order block, which is at this point. And again, when market move to the upside and break above this point, then this point becomes the break of structure for them again. And again, in the same way, when market break above this point, this again becomes the break of structure for them. And when market break the recent low, which is at this point, and they think that the now the structure has shifted to the downside. And like this, when market break below this point, something like this. And they think now market should move to the downside, and this point is the break of structure at this point. But what market do instead is that market mitigate this unmitigated order block or any other unmitigated order block and then again move to the upside, something like this. So the people who have sold at this point based on the change of character because they are new to the SMC, and the people who think that this is the break of structure and market must respect this unmitigated order block or imbalance, they all get trapped by the market. In this way, they are constantly losing money. And we will also show it on a charts. Like if you can say that this is a structure and you can start from anywhere, like we can start from this point. They think that this is the point, and this point becomes the break of structure because market has moved to the upside and break below the recent high. So now where is the next break of structure for them? When market break above this point, then this again becomes the break of structure for them. And after the break of structure, they think this is the order block there where they should buy. And when market tap on this point, they buy and get stopped out by the market because they think this is the order block and market must now move to the upside from this point. And again, when market break below this point at the same point, they think this is the change of character, and after the change of character they are again looking for the sell side. So when they sell, they think that this is also the pullback and market also break below this point, so this is again break of structure. And after the break of structure, they are again willing for the sell. So there is no unmitigated order block, and in this way they are constantly buying and selling. And again market move to the upside, and they think this is again their change of character, but this is not the real change of character. And again market is moving to the upside, and they think that at this point market again shifted to the downside and created a change of character because market has broken the recent low, and they are willing to sell based on this unmitigated order block. And as you can see, this is a small action. Why this happens? Because market has trapped all these people. And again when market move above this point, they think this is the again change of character, and in this way they are constantly buying and selling based on this point. And this happens in almost all time frames. You can also check it on the 15-minute time frame or a 1 hour time frame or any time frame that you trade on. Like at this point market, you can start marking from the any point. Like if you can say that at this point they think that this is the change of character because market has broken below the previous lows, and after the change of character they are willing to sell. So where they can sell, this is the unmitigated order block where they can sell. But market, as you can see, that it gives a little bit reaction but again failed it. Why? Because this is not the real break of structure, and this was not the real change of character, and this is not the real order block. And again market move above this point, and they think this is again the change of character, and after the change of character they are willing to buy on this unmitigated order block. As you can see that market again failed this point, and again in the same way as they have conditioned themselves, this again becomes the change of character for them. And after the change of character, they are again willing to sell at the unmitigated order block, and market didn't even tap down this unmitigated order block, and they think this is again the break of structure. While this is also not the change of character and this is also not the break of structure, and sometimes they get lucky and tap on this unmitigated order block and they sell, and market move to their favor, and this point again becomes the break of structure for them. And in the same way again, when market break above this point, they think the market has shifted to the upside and they're willing to buy, and they again get trapped by the market, and at this point they again think this is the change of character. In the same way, when market again gave this much reaction to the upside, they think the market again shifted to the upside and there is a clear order block and a imbalance, and they are willing to buy based on the unmitigated order block which is at this point. But market again failed them because this is the real isn't the real case, because the real structure is something like different. Like as we can see that the real structure is when market is moving to the upside and creating higher highs and higher lows, then nothing is then nothing is a break of structure till this point. Why? Because market hasn't taken the liquidity, because whenever market don't take the liquidity, then we cannot say that this is a higher high or a higher low. Now at this point we can see that this is the inducement, or we can see the liquidity. Now why this point is the liquidity? Because at this point there can be many type of people who are buying. Now who can buy? Like there are people who are trading based on the support or resistance, and they think this is the sport which has been working for a while, and they think they should buy, and they all buy at this point and they put their stop loss just below this point and target the recent high, and they all get trapped by the market. Now again, the people who trade based on this trend line, they think the trend line has broken and now they must sell, and at this point they sell, put their stop loss just above the high and target the recent low, and in the same way they all get trapped. Now how they get trapped, we will show you it in a minute. And again there can be people who trade based on the head and shoulder pattern, like this is the left shoulder head and there can be a right shoulder for it, and market move to the downside something like this, and they all get trapped. Why? You can see that. Heard. Now, when market creates such situations, then market tap on this unmitigated order block, which is the real order block, and trap all of them who are trading based on these patterns or anything else. And when market break above this point, then the previous major high which was at this point is confirmed when market take out the liquidity. And when the same previous high has been broken by the market to the upside with a candle closure, then you can say that this is the real break of structure. And the deepest point after the recent high and the break of structure is your new lower low. So in this way you can mark your real highs and lows, and again market can move to the upside something like this, or maybe another leg up, and when it breaks to the first low, broke below the first low, then you can say that your higher high is confirmed at this point. Why? Because market has taken the liquidity. Now it can move deeper to mitigate the extreme order blocks, and when market again move above the previous major high which was at this point, then it becomes the break of structure. And after the break of structure, the deepest point again becomes the new higher low, and again market can create the next pullback and break below this point. So at this point this becomes your high. Now in this way, if market do not create the new high but break below the recent low which was at this point, then this point becomes the change of character, and after this change of character you can wait. So what you can wait? You can wait for the market to take out the inducement or break below the first pullback to the downside at this point. Like when market break above the first pullback, then your lower low confirms which is at this point. And when the same lower low is broken by the market, then the highest point becomes your new lower high. In this way you can mark the structure, and now we will also mark it on a chart. Okay, we will start from this point. Like at this point the market structure is bearish, and you can see that what is happening in the market was moving to the downside from this point, and this was the recent high. As you can see that market break above this point. So this was the first high broken by the market, and when market broke the first high, your lower low confirms at this point. Now again market break below the same first high at this point. In the first attempt it was just a liquidity sweep, but in the next attempt market closed below this point, like at this point. So the highest point becomes your higher high. So where is your lower high? At this point, because this was the highest point between this lower low and the break of structure. And again market moved to the downside. So where is the first high? This was the first high at this point, and market break above this point. So after the break above this point, your lower low confirms, which is at this point. And now market again move to the downside and break below this point. So this is the break of structure. And after the break of structure, the higher high confirms, which is at this point. Again, this was the first high. Market break above this point, and the lower low confirms at this point. Now again market move to the downside and break below the same low, which is our real break of structure. And after the break of structure, this becomes your new lower high. And in the same way, market continue to move to the downside, and this was the first high which was broken by the market, and this point becomes the lower low. And in the first attempt market just sweep the liquidity at this point, but in the next attempt market closed below this point. Now this becomes the break of structure, and after the break of structure the highest point becomes at this point. So this becomes your new lower high. And in the same way, at this point there is a first high at this point, and when market break above this point, this becomes your low. And market at this point also break above the recent major high, and also the candle closure above this point, but this is not the healthy candle closure, but we can say that this is a change of character. Now when you can again buy, when market break below the first pullback, which is at this point, our higher high confirms, which is at this point. And if market gave us any opportunity to buy, this was our buying point. But as I have said earlier, this is not the healthy break of structure, change of character. So you must also consider it in your trading. Now this again market again turned bearish at this point. So this again becomes the change of character, and after the change of character we again look for the first high to be broken. This was the first high. Market broke it to the upside, and when market broke it to the upside, this becomes our new lower low. And again market moved to the upside and again broke to the this low. This was not the broke, this is just a liquidity sweep. Now when market sweep the liquidity, there are two possibilities. Market can either move to the upside, take out the inducement and move to the downside, or it can reverse for the longer time frame. Now market moved to the upside and break below the previous major high, which was at this point, and this becomes the change of character. Now after the change of character, where you can buy when market break below the first low. So where market has broken the first low at this point, this was the first high which was broken by the market to the downside. So when market break below this point, this becomes your high. And after the high, you can see that market moved to the downside and again created a change of character at this point. And market again turned bearish. And after that, market again in the same way, if broke below the above the first high, this becomes your lower low. At this point market break above the first high, so this point becomes your low, and market again broke to the downside, and this is your break of structure. And after the break of structure, this becomes your high, and again this was the first high and market broke it to the upside at this point. and in this way this becomes your new low, and after that this is the break of structure, and after the break of structure this is the highest high from where market created the break of structure, and again market moved to the downside, and this was the again first high, market break it to the downside, so this is your low, and at the same point this becomes your break of structure, and this becomes the highest point, so this is your new lower high, and again market continue to drop to the downside, and this is the area which market has grabbed the liquidity which was the first pullback, so this becomes your low because market has created the new low from this point, and again market moved to the downside, and at this point market didn't close the candle above this point, so this is the liquidity sweep of the structure, and when sweep liquidity of the structure is swept and close above this point, then the market turn to the bullish, even though this is not the case in our structure working, but we have to take it in consideration that when market break below the previous low and sweep the liquidity and also close above the previous major high, then this is the change of character because market can move to the upside for the longer term. Okay, if we think this is a change of character, then we again have to look for the recent low to be broken by the market in order to buy the market. But as you can see that market moved to the upside, and the real change of character happens at this point because this was the major recent high, so this point becomes the change of character, and after the change of character where you can buy below the first pullback is broken. So where is the first pullback? This point is the first pullback, market broke it to the downside, so this point becomes the high at this point. Now after the high this was the break of structure to the upside, so after the break of structure this was the deepest point which becomes your new low, and this point again market create break below the first pullback which is at this point, and this becomes your high, and again market move to the upside, and this becomes the break of structure, and after the break of structure this is your new higher low, and again in the same way market continue the same process, repeat the same process. This was the first low, market break below this point, so this point becomes the break of structure, and if market continue to move above upside, then this will be your break of structure, but market move to the downside and break below the previous major low which was at this point, so this becomes the change of character, and this way you can mark the structure, and this was a structure that we have marked in the 15-minute time frame. This was the higher highs and higher lows, and at this point market moved to the upside, and again this was the consolidation. You can also apply the same logic to the internal structure that we have marked the structure in the real time, and this is again the structure, and at this point as you can see that this was again the structure. I hope you have learned many things from this video. Please make sure to like and subscribe this channel.